All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our podcast, Let's Talk Policing. I'm Anastasia Tompkin,
And I'm Max Rivera.
and we are graduate students here at Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism. And it's just always been my passion to talk about racial justice and how we could move it forward. And as an immigrant, I have felt like there's a huge problem with race relations in this country coming from a majority Black and brown country. And so it's been a dream of mine for a really long time to have my voice and have my platform and have a say in the wider narrative about all of this. And I feel like this is the perfect time. I'm not getting any younger. You know, the world is even more chaotic than when I was younger. Now I'm in grad school for journalism. So I just felt like this is the perfect time. And my colleague Max, we just had such great conversations on this type of stuff. So I was like, you know what, if he's down, let's see what we could do. So I'm really grateful, Max, that you've agreed. And I think it's going to be interesting. I think we're going to speak honestly. We're going to speak as budding journalists. You're going to bring your background and your life experience, being a former firefighter, being someone that's born in the U.S. So you have that perspective. You're male. And I'm going to bring my perspective, and we're going to get somewhere.
All right, that sounds good. So let's get started.
Let's get started. So remember I told you I was going to tell you this funny story that happened to me. All right, so where do I begin? It was, what year was it? I think it was 2019. And it was the Pride Parade day, but I didn't know. And then I had a friend from Canada visiting New York, and I knew him because he was my Spanish teacher's son back in Trinidad. And we had like gone to camp a few times, so I knew him, right? And he was coming into town, so I was like, oh, let's meet up, you know? So the day he chose was Pride Parade Day. And I was like, okay, that's fine, even though I know there's a lot going on in the streets. And then I decided to invite my friend to come along with us. So my friend, she was slightly younger than me. How old was she at the time? Maybe like 21, 22. And she was very, how can I say, like, she's a big personality. But she was my best friend at the time. So I told her to come along. And we met up with him. I had to go through a lot to even get there. I actually had to cross through the parade kind of and like jump over a barrier. Then I encountered this police officer who he couldn't let anybody through, right? Or he had to only let people through if they were living in the neighborhood. It was complicated. So I'm standing there waiting for him to let me through. I'm getting annoyed. And I'm like, I should say something. I should say like, oh, you know, cops are so racist.
This is your time. This is your moment.
So I was like, but why would I do that? Because it did look like he was doing his best to let people through, but like in his timing or whatever his criteria was. So I didn't say it. I held my tongue for a little bit longer. And then he's like, okay, you can go ahead. And I was like, yo, imagine if I had said that, like just to, I don't know, get under his skin or just to like, that's not even me, you know? It's usually not something I would do, but I was glad that I didn't do it. And I kind of learned a lesson that day. Like, you can hold your tongue sometimes.
Yeah.
And it kind of was interesting because of what happened after when I did get to the diner. So it was around the time Ava DuVernay's When They See Us came out. And me and my friend, the female one, we had both watched it, and I think it was really emotional for us. That's just context.
Okay.
So we're at the diner. The guy from Canada is there, and then there's a commotion at the door. So everybody in the restaurant turns to look like, what's going on? What's going on at the door? And my friend got upset because the couple next to us, there was two guys next to us at a table, they pulled out their phone and started recording. So she got mad and she was like, this is why there's so much bad videos about us all the time. Like, you guys are always doing that. Stop recording my people. And I was just like, okay, why is she freaking out? But then she took it to another level because they wouldn't stop recording. So then she smacks their phone out of their hand. And me and the guy friend was just like, oh my goodness. The guys were like, did you just touch my phone? How dare you? And then she stands up and she's super animated and she's going back and forth with them. So then I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So I just like grabbed her like around the neck because I didn't know what to do at all. I just knew she cannot end up in a fight with people in public today with so many police on the streets. So I like pulled her back down, but she was fighting me. She was like really breaking away, but she wasn't physically aggressing them, but she was like arguing with them.
Yeah.
So then my attention turns to them and I'm like, listen, I'm so sorry. Please just stop talking to her. Please. Like, it's not helping.
Yeah.
Just, I'm really sorry. And then the guy is also pleading with them, like, please, we're so sorry. Please. And then, so then I say to her, let's say her name is Zaria.
Okay.
I was like, Zaria, you can't, what are you doing? Like, what if they call police? You need to stop right now. They heard me say that and they're like, you know what? Yeah, we're going to call police. And then she's like, you know what? I ain't scared of no pigs or no crackers.
That's a crazy response.
Exactly.
After all that, let's unpack that though, because I think what's interesting is that the cops in this story are both gatekeepers for some and to some, and also potentially, I don't know, saviors or antagonists for another set of stakeholders. So in that moment, what were you sort of most afraid of for your friend?
In that moment, the fact that she used that kind of language publicly, I was like, okay, something is going on for her. This is a big moment. Like, she needs to just calm down. We can process this later privately. But I didn't know if the police came, if they were gonna be able to hold, the nuances of emotion and of thought that I think she was feeling in that moment.
Yeah.
And technically, I mean, she didn't assault them, but she did like smack their phones out their hands. But if police want to, they can trump up charges. Or even if the guys want to, they can say, oh, no, actually, I feel like it was an assault. So they're going to write it down as an assault charge. And I had a little bit of a background in criminal justice then, so I knew that these were possibilities.
Yeah.
And I was scared because I thought, I think I would go to jail with her because that's how much I loved her. And if you know the story of When They See Us, it's based on the Exonerated Five. Yeah. And one of the guys, that's how he ended up embroiled in that whole situation too. So in a way, it kind of showed me that that's something that could happen to me. Like, I could be blindly wanting to help my friend or wanting to be a good friend. And then next thing you know, I end up in jail for something that she did that is, for me, it was avoidable.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
How is that? I mean, you talk about an allegiance with your friend. How does that sort of pressure align with or conflict with, this notion, at least under my era, the notion and the refrain was stop snitching, right? So you're going to go to jail because you're not going to speak up in that scenario, or you're going to be so loyal. And that's what happened with the Exonerated Five, right? And shout out to Yusuf Salam. He just won his district.
Hey.
So I'm just curious, your take there, like, what are your friends' thoughts, or what are you thinking that your friend's thinking in terms of, yeah, you got to go to jail with me too? Or is that something that they don't want? And if you can talk more about too, like, the idea of dealing with cops and then cops dealing with you as parts of monoliths, right? Not looking at you for who you are, but looking at you for the group that you're part of. And same thing with you. You're looking at the cops. That cop at the parade, he's probably just having a nice day, earning some extra money on overtime, enjoying the sights and the livelihood that is the Pride Parade. But you took it to a different place than where maybe the cop was taking it, which was just another Saturday in June.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that interaction with her has spawned so many reflections and essays for me. Like, it really opened my eyes to how difficult the conversation about policing is, because had the cops never came. But there's a whole ending to the story too.
Yeah,
So
please.
basically,
Did they never come because they were called and they just didn't get there, or no one called and it was just
I
an
don't
empty
think
threat?
they called, but by the time the guys threatened to call the police, that sparked something in me. And I was like, you know what? Call the cops then. Call the Popo. I don't care. Call them. Because I know a bunch of lawyers and I'm a lawyer and we will end you.
Oh my God. How many drinks deep are we at this point? Or
There were
nothing?
no drinks.
Eh?
I just literally, because they saw me pleading, they saw me
respect the boldness.
really genuinely worried
Okay.
and trying to calm her down. Like, I wasn't even on her side. I was trying to calm her down. We had apologized profusely, and they would still feel like they could throw, oh yeah, actually, yeah, we're gonna call the cops on you. Since I was actually the one who had brought it up, the possibility that they could call the cops. And so I felt like they weaponized it, and I thought, you know what? I'm not going to go down like no punk.
Yeah,
If
of
that's
course.
what you want to do, go ahead and do it. If you think I'm going to be scared, Max, I was scared. So by the time they walked out the building, I looked down at my hands and they were shaking. I have never trembled in my life before or since that day. To tremble, like where it's visible and I know I'm emotionally at the end of my rope. So I didn't know what I would have done if cops came in there that day. So you know what I said to my friends? I was like, okay, guys, we're going to pray right now.
Okay.
So then we prayed, and I was like, Jesus, please don't let cops come in here right now, because I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what she's going to do, because she's serious. Like, that statement she made, she was not bluffing. She was really serious.
She sounds like a good friend, by the way.
Are you saying that like sarcastically?
No,
or
I'm not legit. Like,
no, she's been about it. She's been about that
everyone needs
life.
that person in the friends group, but they also need someone like you that's going to be a little more level-headed in those scenarios. I think it's messed up that the people overheard that and they kind of took your words and used it against you. I'm curious what made you tremble, though. Why? What were you afraid of? Like, if you could say, cops show up and then what happens? What's your biggest fear, and what do you think is probably the most likely outcome in that scenario, based on either your experience or what you know?
Yeah. I just knew that interacting with cops after watching the series is not something I wanted to do. Generally, I don't like interacting with cops, but I knew that because I have my friend who's being volatile at the moment and just is going to say anything to these, like, she's going to poke at the bear. I know that. And I felt like, which side am I on, really? Not which side am I on, but how much courage do I really have if I can't, in the heat of the moment, have a confrontation like that with cops? And I knew it was so unexpected. I thought we were having a good time. It was a fun day. I wasn't prepared for the movement confrontation or an activist-y type confrontation. I was not prepared for it. I know where I stand, but I also feel like, is it right to, antagonize the police knowing that it's not a good idea? No, I don't feel that way. And that's why I refrained from making the statement earlier to the cop. And I think even that having happened earlier in the day kind of made me realize, okay, there's no point to her telling the cops about just how racist the system is right now after she's, done this questionable thing to
Sure.
a stranger. And I didn't know how I was going to respond in the moment. And I felt like no matter how I responded, I was going to be disappointed in myself. And I was also going to feel the pressure of backing her up and then possibly going to jail with her if things escalated, which I
Yeah.
was like, this shouldn't be my going to jail moment of
Yeah.
all things. Get arrested at a protest, go to jail. That's noble. For this,
Yeah, it's not worth it.
yeah.
I'm curious though, tables turn and you're the one feeling like you need to call the cops. Is that something you feel like you're comfortable doing? Would you have sought police help if it was these two guys breaking your phone, or do you feel like there's some other form of justice that you could exact and not involve the cops? Can you trust them? Can you trust them if they show up and they're supposed to be there for your aid as opposed to some other reason?
Well, I think that's the big ticket question because I don't know. Luckily, I've never really been in a situation where I needed to call the cops. And I guess I hope I wouldn't be because it's
Yeah.
not something I want to do. But if out of necessity, yeah, I would do it. But I just don't trust them. I don't trust their ability to be unbiased, and I don't trust the institution itself.
Gotcha.
So that's what made that entire day complicated. But I was glad that in the end I didn't have to interact with them and we were able to laugh about it. But when I went home, I was angry. I was like,
Yeah.
this really drained me.
I mean, it's terrible when you interact with people or institutions that you feel like the outcome is already stacked, not in your favor. But I think that, we'll do ourselves a great service if in part 2 of this conversation, I'm able to share my experiences and I can share with you my when they see us moment as a justice-involved youth and how outcomes really are at the kind of hands of one or two people that just show up on the scene, and what happens when a narrative gets spun and snowballs and you're fighting for justice and not in the way you think you'd be having to fight. So,
Oh my
hey,
gosh.
I'm grateful for your story, and I think we should continue this part 2.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds interesting. You were justice involved?
Yeah, I think we'll let's save it for part 2 a few times, and
Oh, are we at time?
and we are at
Oh,
at
okay.
at a later date. But I think that'll be a nice tie-in to today's conversation.
Yes, for sure. Well, thank you so much, Max. You've
Yeah.
been a great co-interview host person. Okay. I don't know. What do you got? Co-host. Co-host. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to Chad.
All right. Thanks, y'all. We'll see you soon.